welcome to Elements of Ayurveda, Empowering Wisdom of Life. I'm your host, Colette, and in this podcast, I hope to empower you to take charge of your own health by sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. We will also discuss topics like health and wellness, nutrition, yoga, fitness, meditation, breath work, and much more, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to each other. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe to the show, and the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend you listen to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. I've also set up a Facebook group for us to connect and to support each other, and I'd love for you to join me over at Elements of Ayurveda podcast group. And now, here's the show. Before we start the show today, I want to tell you about a special discount I have on my online consultations right now. It's a limited time discount where I am offering a 15% discount on my 90-minute in-depth consultations and my 60-minute follow-up consultations. All these consultations are done online, and this offer is going until May 24th, 2019. So it's a simple 3-step process in order to get your discount. Here's what you do. Number 1, I would like you to subscribe, rate, and review the Elements of Ayurveda podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. Number 2, take a screenshot or photo of that review. Number 3, email me that screenshot or photo, and I will send you a special link to book your discounted consultation. So simple 3 steps. 1, subscribe, rate, and review. Number 2, take a screenshot or photo of that review. Number 3, email it to me, and I will reply back with the special link where you can book your discounted consult. Now, the offer ends May 24th, 2019, and the consultation must be booked before July 31st, 2019. Now, if you've already left a podcast review, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. And the good news is that you can still get this discount. Just send me a screenshot or photo of your review, email it to me, and I will send you that link also. I would definitely want to make sure that you don't miss out if you've already been kind enough to take the time and leave me a review. Over on the Elements of Ayurveda podcast Facebook group, I have an infographic and all the details of how to do this. But the infographic shows you how to leave a review in iTunes from your iPhone. Now, it doesn't matter where you do the review. It can be wherever you listen to your podcast. But this infographic is specifically for the iPhone. And that is in the announcement on the Elements of Ayurveda podcast Facebook group. So I have never done this before, discounted the consultations. I'm not too sure if I'll do it again, so take advantage of this. And it's a great time to do this if you've already done a consult with me and you need a follow-up, especially as we're going through the change of seasons and you need to shift into new foods, or you want to make sure that you're staying in balance and keeping your body and mind balanced and preventing illness. It's a great time to do this follow-up consult. Or if you're absolutely new to Ayurveda and maybe you've done an online dosha quiz, which doesn't really give much information and it's not a real clear picture of your birth constitution, or most importantly, if you have a current imbalance, it doesn't give you that information. So I would recommend the in-depth consultation for you if it's your first time. And this is where we will talk for the 90 minutes and I will help you determine your birth constitution, see if you have a current imbalance, and then build a strategy of what are the best foods for you, the best lifestyle, and the best routines, and so on, the best exercise. And we'll cover all that to put a good strategy in place for you. So you can find all the information in the show notes. I'll put all that info there and all the links. And I hope to connect with you soon. So now let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to Elements of Ayurveda. Today I am joined by Dr. Marianne Teitelbaum, who graduated summa cum laude from Palmer College of Chiropractic in 1984. She immediately began her studies with Maharishi Ayurveda, obtaining Ayurvedic practitioner certification in 92. In the late 1990s, she began a 17-year one-to-one internship with Vaidya Ramakant Mishra, an award-winning herbal formulator who hails from a 5,000-year-old family lineage of Raj Vidyas, treating the royalty of India. During her internship, Vaidya Mishra taught her how to treat practically every disease, making over 500 herbal formulations for all the problems they were treating together. Dr. Teitelbaum is now writing books, articles, blogs, and courses based on the knowledge Vaidya Mishra imparted to her before his untimely passing in April of 2017. Her first book, Healing the Thyroid with Ayurveda, Natural Treatments for Hashimoto's, Hypothyroidism and Hyperthyroidism, published by Inner Traditions Publishing Company, was published in March 2019. And this is what we're going to discuss today. Dr. Teitelbaum, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for taking the time. And before we get into discussing this book, which is a topic that many of my listeners have requested, so I'm very excited to dive deep into this today, I really want to hear a little bit more about your 17-year one-to-one internship with Vaidya Ramakant Mishra. It just sounds like an amazing experience. How did that manifest itself? How did that come about?
Well, I was trained in Ayurveda in the very early 1980s, so I was one of the first Ayurvedic practitioners in the United States. And by the late 1980s, early 1990s, I was probably had one of the largest Ayurvedic practices in the country. And in fact, the first Ayurvedic company, Maharishi Ayurvedic Products International, that was developed in the United States, they had told me at that point I was actually ordering more herbs from their company than any other practitioner. So they were asking me what they could do to help me, and I in turn was helping them with their marketing. They always wanted to reimburse me financially, and I wouldn't accept any any money from them. And I guess it was my good karma that when suddenly a wonderful Vaidya had shown up from India, Dr. Ramakant Mishra, he became their greatest herbal formulator. At the time, they said to me, why don't we have him train you somewhat? He can do phone consultations with you. And I started doing that. They wanted to repay me. Since I wouldn't take any money from them for all the work I had done for them, they said, we'll let him train you. And at some point, he was doing that, and he decided that I became so advanced, he felt he couldn't train me over the telephone anymore. And he asked the company if he could come and train me in person, which he did.
Wow.
And then he continued to do so for the next 17 years. And during that time, he developed all those 500 formulas based on what we were seeing together.
Wow, that's a beautiful story and just shows your good karma paid off.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Well, thanks for sharing that story with us. Now, in your book, you wrote about your client, Judy, and how her case is typical and one that you see, as you put it, several times a day, all week long, year after year. Can you please share this case study with the listeners? And, the fact that it's a typical case, you see it so much, and I think it may resonate with a lot of people.
Well, there's basically two types of thyroid patients I see. And I also want to say this, that I eventually hope to write books about every disease and how to treat them, because I feel there's this huge void in the Ayurvedic literature where people are just discussing generally Ayurveda. And we've had all those books. They discuss Vata, Pitta, Kapha, Ama, cleansing, skincare, recipes. They're all wonderful books, and I have them all, and I love them. But I feel that we now need to progress on and learn how to treat these diseases.
Yes.
I decided to work with the thyroid first because it's what I see most commonly in my practice. But at any rate, there are basically two types of thyroid patients you'll see in any given day. One type has these full-blown symptoms of thyroid malfunction, such as weight gain for no apparent reason, hair loss, history of miscarriages, the heartbeat, it might be beating irregularly. They might be constipated, have depression, cold hands and feet. The symptoms go on. And yet, when they have their blood work drawn, it comes back normal. So they're told nothing's wrong with them, and they go to the doctor's office feeling frustrated and hopeless.
Yeah.
They also make them feel like it's in their head, and sometimes they'll put them on antidepressants. When modern medicine doesn't know what to do, that's their first go-to. Let's do an antidepressant, which usually makes you gain about 40 pounds. And that's what happens to most of my patients. Then they're in worse shape because now they were already gaining weight and now they're even more heavy.
Yeah.
The second type of patient you'll see are those who do have those similar symptoms, and yet it does show up in blood work as a thyroid problem. So they're immediately put on thyroid hormone, whether it's natural or synthetic, doesn't seem to matter. And their symptoms continue. They still have the weight gain, the hair loss, the depression, and so on. Now, when either group decides to seek out alternative care, the problem in the Western world is we don't have a strong history of that, especially in the United States. We're a new country here. We never had a chance to discover our herbs. We don't have what they have in India where these wise people can show us how this is done. So we're all winging it. Yeah. We're doing crazy cleanses, crazy diets. We don't even know our herbs. So as a result, many of the practitioners are using these synthetic vitamins. So when people decide to seek out what they consider alternative care in the States anyway, they usually don't get well either. So in her case, and how I open the book is that you have to see in each person why the thyroid is weak, and it's a little different in each case. Address that, and then you support the thyroid gland.
Okay, and so in Judy's case, she was feeling all these symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just feeling, and had she already been through the Western medical system?
Oh, yes. Most of the people I see are. And in her case, she was told nothing was wrong with her.
Oh, my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So before we go any further, it would be great, Dr. Teitelbaum, if you could give us like a thyroid gland 101 and also briefly explain about the endocrine system, which I know plays an important role as well.
Well, in my book, I do open it like that, where I describe what the endocrine system is. It's pretty easy to understand. It's a system of glands that produce hormones. The hormones have a wide-ranging effect on the body. The thing with the thyroid gland, it's unique in that it's the only gland whose hormones affect every cell in your body. So in reverse, any stressor in the body, whether it's physical, mental, environmental, or emotional, will weaken the thyroid gland. So it's like a very delicate little flower. You have to make sure it's watered daily, make sure there's no stressors in the body, the diet, the bedtime. If there's heavy metals in the water like fluoride, if you're getting heavy metals in the flu shot, they affect the thyroid. So you have to see in each person, again, what's causing it, and then the thyroid gland will perk right back up.
Okay. And so also I would like you to explain before we go further is the three imbalances that you discuss here, the Hashimoto's, the hypothyroidism, and the hyperthyroidism. So what are the differences between the three of those, please?
Hypo means underactive. So that means the thyroid's sluggish. It's not working up to par. So you can feel fatigue and low energy, depression. With hyper, just like the name implies, it's working too quickly. It's hyper, and your heart beats fast, and you're sweating, and you just feel like you're racing around all day. You're losing weight for no apparent reason. And in the other case, Hashimoto's, that's a totally different thing going on there. In my book, I have a whole chapter describing it. It's where your immune system is attacking the thyroid gland. So the thyroid gland itself is just a victim. And in any one of those three cases, they all have to be treated differently. And yet modern medicine, they're all treated the same. So if you have hypothyroid, your thyroid's weak, they give thyroid hormone. If you have Hashimoto's, the thyroid's weak because the immune system's attacking it. They just give the thyroid hormones, and they're doing nothing to address the reason why the immune system's attacking the thyroid gland.
Right. And this is the thing with Ayurveda, is that it's an individual approach. And like you said, you need to talk with each client and see what their circumstances are and see what's the root cause. So do you sit down with clients now as well, or do you continue to practice?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Just yesterday, I've seen 10 thyroid patients. Mm-hmm. I'll probably see another 12 today. But in each case, they each have their own unique protocol they're following and their own unique reasons why the thyroid's not working correctly.
Yes, and I think that's very important to state and to underline that it has to be an individual approach, because there's so many stressors like that you said that could be affecting the thyroid gland. So you need to do an in-depth consultation, I'm sure, with each person to try figure out this puzzle of what is affecting their thyroid.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the real truth is that it's very easy to see what's affecting. Sometimes because we're new to this, we think this is a complicated thing and I'll never get this. But it's actually very easy to see. As soon as I feel the pulse, I can tell what's going on. The way I also open the book in the first chapter on Ayurveda, I think this is probably one of the few times that someone has written exactly what we feel in the pulse. Mm-hmm. So in the pulse, you can feel Vata, Pitta, Kapha. That's very easy. Then we can feel the subdoshas of Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Mm-hmm. But then we can feel the 7 tissues, the muscle, fat, nerve, bone, and so on. And then it keeps going even deeper and deeper and deeper beyond that. In the book, I described 4 types of toxins. They each have a different feel in the pulse, see? So you can immediately feel what type of toxin is affecting the thyroid, or is it in the liver, or there's a constant interplay in the whole body. In the Western world, we try to dissect the body and say we have the thyroid over here, the liver over there, the gut over there. But the real truth is that it's all working together. Mm. In the pulse, you can feel all these connections. If the liver's not working right, the thyroid can't work right. If the friendly bacteria are depleted in the gut, the thyroid can't work right. See? So there's all these reasons. Whatever isn't working right, the thyroid can't work correctly.
That's amazing that you can feel all those subtleties in the pulse. That's truly amazing. Now, also, I wanted to ask about how the thyroid hormones are made, because I found this very interesting in the book, and I'd love for you to share it with the listeners today.
It's very interesting. The brain gives a signal, the hypothalamus. When the thyroid hormones get low, a signal is sent from the hypothalamus to the pituitary to secrete TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. And that hormone tells the thyroid gland to release more hormones. So what that means is that inside your body, the cells are communicating with each other. Mm. We as Ayurvedic practitioners know how that communication works. And it works through prana. We know the word prana. Prana is that vibration from nature, the sun and the moon. I'll have a whole section in the book on exactly what prana is. Mm-hmm. That vibration is imparted to us in the prana, in the food we eat, the air we breathe, the water we drink, and then any herbs we might take. So this vibration is giving the intelligence to our cells so they can communicate together. A very important part of the book is where I describe when we take in things with no prana, such as a synthetic pharmaceutical, there'll be an effect, but there won't be any intelligence to that. Yeah. Same with if we take synthetic nutraceuticals, which are all the rage in America right now. Mm-hmm. All the holistic doctors are prescribing them. So if your thyroid was weak, they would tell you need to take L-tyrosine, you need to take iodine, B-complex, glutathione, and so on and so on. But see, when these come into the body, again, they have some benefit. There'll be some side effects and toxicity because there's no prana there. Mm. So the ancient doctors said, let's develop these herbs and keep the prana intact. So that's one issue. We have to make sure the herbs still have the prana intact. They have to have been selected and processed according to strict Ayurvedic standards. So that's one way where you get this feedback loop occurring from the brain to the pituitary gland to the thyroid gland. That's how they're made. The actual hormone is composed, and this is important, of tyrosine, and iodine. So lots of people, when their thyroid's weak, they immediately start taking iodine, but it's synthetic. It'll backfire on you. It'll be toxic to the thyroid. So I recommend in the book different sources of iodine like seaweed or fish. The other is tyrosine, and this is also very important. Tyrosine is found in animal protein. So this brings us to the idea of what those ancient doctors who were strict vegetarians warned people, and they said, you need something from an animal at every meal. So if you're vegetarian, that thing suddenly becomes milk and milk products. I don't know where you live, but here in the States, there's a great aversion to having milk. So in my book, I have a whole big section on milk and how to take it in the correct way.
Well, there's all these fad diets now, and with veganism and raw food diet. And while we're talking about foods, I think it would be interesting to talk a little bit more about this. So what is the problem? And you discussed this in your book with a raw food and a vegan diet.
The way I open the book is I let people know that at some point I'm going to discuss the herbs we use for the thyroid. And I think when most people think, oh, this is a book, the first Ayurvedic book talking about the thyroid gland, that she's going to let us know about all these great herbs that we can take for our thyroid gland, which I am. But the real issue is even deeper than that. The real issue is that you have to see what's weakening the thyroid and address that, and then you use those herbs. So what that means is, and this is what I say in the very beginning of the book, if Vata is disturbed, Vata is the element of lightness, dryness, quickness, coldness. So if Vata is disturbed, the thyroid can't work well because high Vata gives lots of movement. You know how we get agitated and we get hyper when our Vata is high. So if Vata is high, the thyroid can't handle all that accelerated, constant movement, constant running in the body, and it weakens the thyroid. So the most Vata pacifying food of all is milk if you boil it. Has to be good quality milk. You have to know which spices to cook it with, how to take it in the correct way, and fix your digestion. See, the problem that has happened through the years is we've existed on so many pharmaceuticals such as antibiotics, birth control pills, steroids, proton pump inhibitors. They destroy our friendly bacteria in the gut, and they create a lot of intense heat in the liver as they come through the liver because they're hot chemicals. Combination of overheating in the liver and lack of friendly bacteria in the gut makes it difficult to digest milk. So now lots of people are having reactions to it. And what's happening is people are making it appear to look like milk is the culprit, that milk is this terrible thing that causes autoimmune diseases and cancer. And it's not. It's just that when someone doesn't digest it well, first it forms ama, ama, and you know that word ama, is digested food. Then as it rots, it forms amavisha, and visha is poison. So it becomes the raw material to produce autoimmune diseases and cancer. But if you fix your digestion, have the good quality milk, and take it in the correct way, it becomes like a nectar because it immediately pacifies Vata, provides the protein that the thyroid needs to make its hormones, the cholesterol that the entire endocrine system needs to make its hormones, and it immediately absorbs into the cells, whereas other foods take about a month to hit all 7 tissues.
Right. Yeah. And therefore, as we know, my listeners know that a raw food diet can be very aggravating to Vata. So it will aggravate those symptoms even more. And so to a vegan diet. And you say milk products like ghee as well will be included in that?
Ghee is good. Ghee is wonderful. Ghee and milk would help to balance the Vata more than anything. Milk a little more maybe than ghee, but you need both because, again, the reproductive glands, the thyroid, and the adrenal glands all work like this finely tuned orchestra. So the reproductive glands and the adrenal glands make their hormones out of cholesterol. So the ghee is going to really help that. The milk is going to really pacify the Vata. You know, when you drink more milk, you just suddenly settle down, see? So, and again, a raw foods diet, it's all the elements of Vata, cold, dry, light, too light, and the same with the vegan diet. And in the pulse, you can feel very low ojas. All the 7 dhatus, all the 7 tissues are very weak when someone's eating a vegan diet or a raw foods diet. And at the end of the seventh tissue, we produce ojas. And what ojas is, it's our hormones, see? So how could we possibly have a balanced hormonal system if we're not fully able to nourish those 7 tissues,
Absolutely. Yeah. And can you advise us on what type of milk, what type of milk do you recommend in the book?
In the book, I'll go through, there's different types. We start with the absolute best would be raw milk. That's A2. So first of all, raw means it wasn't pasteurized or homogenized, and they haven't touched, they basically milked either the cow or the goat. They're the 2 milks we're mainly recommending. So A2 milk is where mostly all milk is A2. Breast milk is A2, goat's milk is A2, camel, buffalo. So any animal's milk is considered A2 genetically. Okay. Cow's milk used to be A2, but through the years they became genetically modified, where most of the cows now, at least in the Western world, apart from Asia and Africa, are considered A1. But the A1 milk has a protein in it that's difficult for many people to digest, and it leads them to believe they have a lactose intolerance. But many of those people, if they can get A2 milk, realize they can digest it, and it was just that protein they weren't able to digest. So first we recommend raw A2 milk is the best. If you can't get that, we recommend raw A1 milk. And in many states in the United States, with the exception of 10 states, we're not allowed to have raw milk in these states. So we have to have pasteurized milk, but at least if you can get unhomogenized, which many of the food co-ops, Whole Foods markets do have available. I tell patients don't go below that, because when you homogenize the milk, it becomes very dangerous to drink now. So they're the 3 we would recommend. Okay,
great. So a raw A2 would be like a goat's milk.
Well, you can get raw A2 cow's milk.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, lots of people are demanding it now that they're educating themselves and finding out more about it. So now in the book, I give some sources of A2 milk in my resource section where you can actually get it. And one of the farmers in there, he overnights it anywhere in the United States for our patients. So that's the milk I get myself.
That's amazing. And your resources in the book are amazing, and I really appreciate that. Okay, thank you for that information. That's wonderful. Now, you mentioned there Ama Visha in particular, and I would like you to, and that's where the Ama ferments, and I actually haven't gone into that for the listeners, so I'd like you to just briefly explain that. My listeners are familiar with Ama, the toxins in the body. Could you explain to us a little bit about Ama Visha, please?
This was a very sore point with Vaidya Mishra. He felt that only Ama was being talked about, when in fact there's 4 types of toxins. So Ama occurs when the food only partially digests. See, the goal of digestion is that once you swallow the food, it goes into the initial channel, the ancient doctors called it, which is now known as the digestive tract. It's that long tube, the esophagus, stomach, intestines, and then it comes out the other end. But as it's going through that long channel, it has to break down into smaller and smaller particles so that it can come out of that channel and absorb in the cells. So the food that you're eating can't help you unless it gets into the inside of the cell. Now, if either something's wrong with your digestion or the food is too heavy, like peanut butter or cold milk, it will remain outside of the cell and just sit there and clog the channel. And that's what Ama is. It's partially digested food that's sitting and clogging the channel. But as the Ama sits and it ferments, it starts to, any fermentation process creates acids. So this acidic toxin is much more dangerous. It's called Ama Visha. The word Visha means poison. So now regular Ama is just channel clogging. Like if you drink cold milk or eat lots of ice cream, you'll feel clogged up. Those channels, sinuses, the throat, the ears, start to clog. That's Ama clogging a channel. And that's what Ama does. It's very cold. In fact, that's why we say we have a cold when we have a cold, because we're discharging Ama within the mucus. You can actually see it in there. So, but Ama Visha is a whole different thing where it's heated up now and it's much more dangerous. So it becomes the initial first steps towards autoimmune diseases and cancer, both of which have this element of heat inside the cells, inside the whole body, and it's this heat that is what breeds inflammation.
Okay, and then this inflammation causes a lot of other problems throughout the body.
Yes. Inflammation. See, if there's inflammation, then inside of the cell of anyone who has cancer or with any autoimmune disease process, there's heat. So what's happening is the toxins in your blood are always coming through all day long, but if once they heat up, as they come through the skin, they'll start to irritate the skin. So if you ever have a rash or eczema, it's Amavisha coming through the skin. So, but regular toxins, as they come through, if they're not overheated, won't give a rash. Now, so with any autoimmune disease, lots of those patients will also have a rash going on at the same time, or some kind of skin condition, because they have lots of Amavisha. There's another type of toxin that's also very hot, and it's known as Garvisha. Garvisha are the toxins in the outside world. So that would be like the pharmaceuticals we take, the nutraceuticals, all these things synthetically made in nature, air pollution, pesticides, and so on, heavy metals. So when these interact in our body too, let's say we get a flu shot, or we put some skincare products on our skin that have chemicals, or we're breathing in air pollution, these are very hot and reactive toxins as well. So these can also accumulate and contribute to autoimmune diseases and cancer. In the book, I talk about how to rid the body of Amavisha and Garvisha. Also, the fourth type of toxin, which is electromagnetic radiation.
Yes.
And it turns out that the thyroid is sensitive to any one of these four toxins, see?
And that's huge in today's world.
It's huge, and think of this. The ancient doctors of India never discussed this. Why? Because they didn't have these toxins 5,000 years ago when those texts were written. So the ancient doctors said, we're going to leave the textbooks of Ayurveda open for future doctors to come in and write new chapters because we can't foresee what's going to happen. And that's exactly what Vaidya Mishra did. As I sat with him for those 17 years, he was the only one I know who addressed these four types of toxins. No one else has done it. And what he found when he first sat with me, it was very interesting. He brought all the herbs from India. He lined them up, all the herbs we know of and all the Ayurvedic practitioners use, from Godakola to Bacopa Monieri to Ashwagandha, Shilajit, all these. He lined them all up, all the liver cleanses. He started putting the patients on them. And within a very short period of time, I remember him to the exact day, he turned to me and said, I don't know what I'm going to do. People can't take these herbs anymore. They're too heating to the liver. Everyone's pulse I feel Ranjaka Pitta in the liver. It's too overheated. And when you take these herbs, they're going to heat the liver more. And he said, so we have to figure out what to do now. We have to figure out how to get these herbs into the patient. He stumbled for a little while, treading water. He went into deep meditation, and he finally cognized what to do. Every herb has the crude herb and also the prana, the intelligence of what that herb's going to do. He figured out how to get rid of the crude herb and just keep that intelligence intact. And he made what are called transdermal creams, where you could give the herbs through the skin and go directly in. See, the problem was lying in the fact that when you swallow the herb, it's going through the liver.
Of course, yeah.
But 99.999% of the patients we see now, the liver is overheated from too many of these Garvisha, Amavisha, too many of these hot toxins in this modern era going through it. You know, it's just like rain, which is alkaline spring water. When it picks up air pollution, it becomes acid rain.
Right.
So the same thing has happened in our liver. It's overheated. It's angry. When the herbs come in, it has a temper tantrum on them. It oxidizes them, and you have a bad reaction from the herbs. So he developed these transdermal creams and also these glyceride drops where we put little drops in water and take it. So it's slowly coming into the liver. And then from that point on, we were able to treat things.
That's amazing.
Especially autoimmune diseases and cancer, which we weren't able to treat before that because every herb was creating more heat, and that's what is causing those conditions in the first place.
Wow, what a fascinating insight. And that he figured out to just keep the prana and get rid of the crude herb. That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, so just bypassing the liver.
Bypassing the liver, and then it goes in and it has its effect. Just amazing. With the prana herb, yeah.
Amazing. And it just shows the intelligence of nature. And you know, you're talking a lot now about the poor liver is put under so much pressure in our society, not only these pharmaceutical and synthetic vitamins that you spoke of earlier, but our liver is just overworked. And, you know, because as you say, these synthetic products and vitamins and so on are going in and they don't have any prana and they're not made up of the 5 elements. So the body treats them as toxins and sends them to the liver. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right.
So just think about this, though. In this modern era, everyone's liver is hyperreacting.
Yeah.
The herbs that we use to treat the liver are ashwagandha and shilajit. Both are overheating to the liver. So what do we do? See, so what I'm saying here is that with Hashimoto's especially, that's autoimmune. It means the liver's overheating. It means that the 3 parts of the immune system have lost their way. They're off balance. They're off the track. We need to bring them back in balance so that they can get, like normally the immune system knows, it has intelligence. It should only attack pathogens, viruses, bacteria. And if it loses its way and it goes off balance, it'll start attacking you. That's autoimmune. Or food like gluten and dairy. See, this is what's happening in this modern era. The immune system is comprised of the friendly bacteria in the gut, the liver, and the bone marrow. What many people don't know, and the book will discuss this, and we could feel it in the pulse easily enough. These modern toxins, every time you step outside and you breathe in air pollution, it goes immediately into the bone marrow. Many pharmaceuticals immediately in the bone marrow. If you have a flu shot, it goes immediately into the bone marrow. The heavy metals, all these chemicals go there. They heat up the liver, and many of them destroy the friendly bacteria. So this is why, since the advent of pharmaceuticals over 100 years ago, there's an increase in 500% of autoimmune diseases now. And so Hashimoto's is one of them. It used to be rare, but now it's the most common autoimmune disease. So the trick in treating Hashimoto's, which I'll discuss in detail in the book, is to get the friendly bacteria to regrow in the gut, cool down the heat in the liver, and clean the bone marrow. So the trick in cleaning the bone marrow is that we can use herbs like guduchi is the only herb we know to clean the bone marrow, but it's heating to the liver. However, the stem of the guduchi plant is cooling, so we have to use the stem. I'll go into detail in the book about that. And that guduchi can pull those very hot toxins out of the liver. So what I see, many people who come to me who have Hashimoto's, their endocrinologist has heard about ashwagandha, and they're putting them on that, and it's aggravating the Hashimoto's because it's a very hot herb. See what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so even in Ayurveda, we can make that mistake if we think, oh, Hashimoto's thyroid problem, take shilajit, ashwagandha, it'll heat the liver. And then many people in the United States, at least, are taking things that are very heating and they don't realize it. Here, there's a very big fad to take turmeric. So people take capsules of turmeric or curcumin, the active ingredient in the turmeric. That heats the liver. They're taking garlic capsules. It also heats the liver. They're taking B complex. They're taking vitamin C. All these are heating the liver. They're also taking fish oils, which are inflammatory. So it goes on and on. The types of things we're taking, flax oil, they're all overheating. So everyone's making all these mistakes, and that's why we're not successfully treating Hashimoto's or any other autoimmune disease in this country.
Yeah, so true. And that's why rather than listening to the latest fads or trends or trying to self-diagnose, it's so important to go to somebody like you, Dr. Teitelbaum, get individual care. Yes.
The mistake that they're making is here they just look at like turmeric, they say has anti-inflammatory capabilities and it can do all these things, which it can. But in Ayurveda, we always learn, is this cooling or heating? And that's not something we learn about here in the States regarding any of the foods or remedies. So that's something you have to learn about in this modern era with all this autoimmune disease and cancer we're having, and avoid those heating things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just the intelligence of the plant alone, like you're saying with the guduchi, that the stem is cooling, but the actual leaf itself is heating, and just understanding that and the importance of seeking the right information and getting that individual care is so important. Yes. Yeah. That was Dr. Mishra's favorite herb, by the way, was guduchi, because it's the only herb that can clean the bone marrow. And in the book, I have a little section on guduchi.
describing what the ancient doctors wrote about it, how enlightened an herb it is.
This ancient wisdom is amazing. If we just could slow down a little bit in the modern world and respect it and know that it has to be, we can't just mass consume these products or these things, that we really have to understand the intelligence and slow down and understand exactly that it is an individual approach. And I think that's what we need to do, is like slow down a little bit more.
Yes, I can see just from being in private practice now for 30 years, I can see the trend that's occurring. And the trend is that we have to return back to this ancient medicine to see what those doctors had to say, because they were absolutely correct. My book is full of hundreds of research articles, and everything that they said has been researched now. You know, for example, here in the West, the type of research they're using, they might say, oh, cholesterol will clog your arteries, and oh no, it doesn't. So they're back and forth and back and forth. Yeah. But the knowledge of Ayurveda is considered a siddhanta. That means that knowledge is never changing. So what those ancients said was absolutely correct. They said, for example, that ghee would not clog the channels. You know, now you know that if you eat clarified butter or ghee in the diet, there's something in it that prevents any plaque from building up in the walls of the arteries. See, so that's cholesterol too. Yes. So that's the type of information that we need to go back and look at and see what they said. We need to understand about prana. We need to understand these ideas of heating and cooling and so forth, so that we can correctly treat our patients.
Right. And is it true that ghee helps to transport the herbs across the barriers, whereas where the Amavisha blocks, the ghee can help transport that, and that's why it's important to use ghee in our foods?
Yeah, there's several. I'll talk about ghee in there in great detail in the book. But yeah, every cell wall in your body is composed of cholesterol. So if let's say you had raw asparagus, when you chew that up, not much will get in the inside of the cell, because you can't chew it down enough to that point where it can absorb. If you cook it, you're softening the fibers, you get more absorption. But if you cook it and you put ghee on it, the ghee will transport it across the cell wall. And the ancient doctors knew that, and there's many, many formulas where they cook the herbs in ghee, so that ghee can transport the herb across the cell wall, which is amazing to me, because they didn't have microscopes back then, and they knew that was necessary. Yeah.
It is amazing. The wisdom is amazing. And also that, you know, I was so delighted to see that one of the amas was this electromagnetic currency, the EMFs causing problems, and the fact that these ancient texts were left open for the future doctors to come in and put whatever is occurring nowadays in there. And Vaidya Mishra said that this has a huge impact on our health, these EMFs as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in the book, I show how to release those 4 types of toxins. There's several ways to release the EMFs and kind of get them out of the body too, as well as the Garvisha.
Wonderful, wonderful. There's so much information in the book, and I have so many questions. And we were talking, you know, a lot just now about the liver and the big role that the liver and the gastrointestinal tract plays in the hormone production, and why it's so important to do regular cleansing in the body, but also nurturing cleansing, not these harsh cleanses we see out there sometimes, right? We want to make sure that we're rejuvenating the body at the same time.
Well, it's also, think of this, the main toxin back then when the ancient texts, in fact, were written was ama. So ama is cold, sticky, clogging. So to release ama, you have to burn it out. So you have ginger and peppers and ginger tea and all these heating things. The problem in the modern culture now is we have the hot toxins, the Amavisha and the Garvisha, the chemical toxins. So that requires a totally different way of removal, and that's what I talk about in the book. That wasn't really discussed in the ancient text. So you have to be careful, because when you're pulling those out of the different areas, whether it's the brain, the liver, it's going to travel through channels into the bowel movement, urine, and the sweat. Those channels could rupture if you pull them out too quickly. So in the book, I'll talk about how to pull them out slowly and carefully so that you don't rupture those channels. Wonderful.
Such great advice. Wonderful. Now, you also mentioned in the book that, you know, about our daily dinacharya or self-care practices, which we talk about a lot in this podcast. And particularly you mentioned Abhyango oil massage. Now, you talked a moment ago about the skin and how transdermal creams were used in order to get the prana from the herbs into the body without them going through and heating up the liver. Can you talk to us a little bit about this and the importance of putting oil on our skin daily versus ingesting, like you mentioned earlier, fish oils or flax oils, which are heating?
Yeah, again, we're always pointing back to that ancient wisdom, how wise those doctors were. So what they said was, and this was one of the first things I learned in Ayurveda, that we should rub our skin with oils. We call it abhyanga. I'm sure your listeners know about that. There's different types of oils, and I use several types in my practice. When you rub oil into the skin, every single pore is like a mouth. It's taking whatever you put on that pore directly into the bloodstream quicker than if you swallowed it. So the ancient doctors said there were numerous health benefits to rubbing the body with oil. It would lubricate the joints, it would balance the vata, but they also said it would help hormonal problems. See, and now when I was researching the book, I found that they're actually reclassifying the skin as an endocrine organ. Yeah, they're astonished and amazed, and they're developing this whole new realm of endocrinology where they just discovered this, that the skin can make hormones. And in fact, it makes most of the hormones after menopause. And yet, quietly, Ayurveda knew this thousands of years ago. See, so a lot of people say, after menopause or during, you should take fish oil and primrose oil for your hormones and different types of essential fatty acids and omega-3s. The problem there is that when you swallow it, you're taking it through the liver and then the gallbladder, which have to process those fats. And they can't handle that all of a sudden, that extra amount of fat coming into the gallbladder because it's supersaturating the bile with too much fat, and you run the risk of turning the bile into a sludge, which I'll talk a lot about in the book. But at any rate, look how wise those ancient doctors were. They said, no, rub the oil on the skin. It goes directly into the blood, and you're bypassing digestion.
Right, because it's just so overwhelming to ingest that much oil at once.
Yeah, and on top of that, as I was treating so many thousands of thyroid cases for the past 30 years, I started to notice this connection. Whenever the thyroid was weak, the gallbladder wasn't working. And when I wrote the book, I thought, I can't just write that I see that connection. Everyone likes to hear about research. So I looked, and sure enough, there was the research. And what it said was that when the thyroid's weak, the sphincter of Oddi, it's the sphincter that releases the bile from the gallbladder into the duodenum. It won't work properly.
My goodness.
And in fact, there's two other things that happen, which I'll discuss in the book, when the thyroid's weak. So sure enough, there's this correlation. So as the bile sits there, it's supposed to be like a liquid that squirts out when we eat. As it sits there, it becomes thicker and thicker, and it turns into a sludge. And then if you let it go too long, it turns into gallstones. And then you'll have to have your gallbladder removed. You've gone through those 6 stages of a disease process. So early on, when you see this sludge, you want to thin it out. And so I devoted, and this was one of my favorite chapters in the book. It's a whole chapter on the gallbladder, because what happens when the gallbladder doesn't work properly has numerous implications in the body. It can lead to acidic reflux, acid reflux. It can lead to high estrogen, low progesterone, because the estrogen's cleared out in the bile every day. So if it's not coming out, the estrogen builds up. When we eat our food, it goes into the stomach first, and there's all this acid in the stomach. Then the acid squirts into the duodenum. But once the acid squirts into the duodenum, a signal sent immediately to the gallbladder to release the bile, to alkalinize the digestive juices so that they don't reflux up. See, the bile moves the food downwards through the intestines, and then it comes out the other end. It gives us the urge to move our bowels. So if the bile's not flowing, you'll become constipated, and the acids will flow up, and they call it acid reflux. So mistake doctors make in the Western world, they give these acid reflux medications. They're called proton pump inhibitors, like Nexium, Prilosec. They take away the acid. So now you have no acid, no bile flow. See, and the underlying problem with the bile continues. So there's many problems like this that are occurring, and people are being treated incorrectly for those superficial, or they're superficially treating it when they should be treating the gallbladder, but nobody knows about this. So to me, I thought that the book was somewhat groundbreaking in that it's talking about all the problems that can occur. And these were just two of them. There's many more when the bile.
Yeah, and I guess gallbladder removal is one of the number one operations in the U.S., isn't that correct?
It's the number one. And also, wherever I've lectured around the country, United States, Canada, on the thyroid, so many people said to me, oh my God, I have gallbladder problems too, along with my thyroid, or I had my gallbladder removed. But it's not too late. You still make bile, and you still need to thin out the bile.
Okay. Yeah, and that's the thing in the Western medical system. While there's some great benefits of it, it's a reductionist medicine. So we need to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. And like you said, the connection now between the gallbladder and the thyroid, and now saying that the skin is part of the endocrine system. That's just amazing. I was riveted by that in your book.
Yeah.
So, amazing. So the big thing is, like you said earlier, as Ayurveda preaches, is fix your digestion, which is really key to start with that.
Yeah, start everywhere. I mean, I do everything all at once, but you can't forget digestion, because if you're not digesting properly, and it's rare that I find someone who is digesting properly, but if you're not digesting properly, you're automatically turning the food into toxins, and then the thyroid's struggling. It can't handle.
Yeah. Time is running fast, Dr. Teitelbaum. I have so many more questions. It's just amazing to listen to you. But I'd love to finish up today with, why we can't go into detail on all the foods. And you give amazing information. And listeners out there, I really recommend that you purchase the book. And it's just a wealth of information. You get all the details on foods and recipes and so on, and resources. But can you tell us what nutrients we need to include in our diet to maintain a healthy thyroid, or at least a few of them?
First and foremost is animal protein. So if you're vegetarian, it's going to come from milk, paneer, like that type of thing. So some chicken, turkey, fish, if you're not vegetarian. We don't want to go so far and include red meat, which could clog the channels. You also, in order for the thyroid to work correctly, it does need iodine. So you can have some seaweed or kelp or fish if you're not vegetarian. It needs magnesium. So what I do, I give a list of the nutrients the thyroid needs to either make the hormones or activate the hormones. So it needs like B12, again, vegans, perk up your ears on that one. B12 iron, same thing, vegans, think of that. And it needs vitamin D, and I go into great lengths about vitamin D in the book, and where to get it. Vitamin D is very hard to get in the diet. But you mainly have to get that from the sun hitting the skin, or we recommend transdermal vitamin D, which I'll talk about in the book, because it's a bad vitamin. You don't want to be taking that through your gallbladder too.
Yeah.
And it needs zinc and also selenium. So in the book, I'll show where to get those sources in food. See, not to take the synthetic versions of the zinc and so forth.
Yeah, I went out and bought my Brazil nuts this week after reading your book for the selenium. I was like, I think I need more of that in my diet.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I can't thank you enough, Dr. Teitelbaum. This has been riveting, and I would love for you to tell the listeners where they can find out more about you, your offerings, and of course, your new book, which is what we were discussing today. And the name of the book, again, for people is Healing the Thyroid with Ayurveda, Natural Treatments for Hashimoto's, Hypothyroidism, and Hyperthyroidism. So can you tell us where people can find it and more about your offerings?
Yes, the book is available through Amazon, also Amazon in the UK. It's also available in Barnes & Noble's bookstores across the country and in Canada, and many bookstores as well. There's also probably some online places you can get it, and pretty soon I just made an audiobook version, so that should be out. It's also on Kindle. And for myself, you can just Google my name online, and my website will come up. I would recommend you do that, not because I need more patients. In fact, we're overrun with patients, but because on my website, I have 10 classes that I offer free to anyone who wants them. These are free Ayurvedic classes. They're 10 hours worth of lectures. Amazing. And it'll say online classes. You could click on it, and you can just feel free to listen to those lectures as many times as you like.
Amazing. So your website is just your name, Marianne Teitelbaum.
Yeah, you don't have, it's drmteitelbaum.com, but you can just Google my name, Dr. Marianne Teitelbaum, MarianneTeitelbaum, and the website usually pops right up.
Wonderful. And I will put all those links in the show notes as well. Dr. Teitelbaum, thank you so much. Thank you for all the amazing work you're doing in the world. I think this book is so needed, and I agree with you. I think we need to talk more specifically about different diseases in the body now, and I think this book is going to be running off the shelves. So thank you so much for all the wonderful work you're doing in the world.
Oh, thank you for having me, Colette.
Okay, take good care of yourself.
Thank you. You too.
Best wishes. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Dr. Teitelbaum. I know this was a requested topic by many of you in the Elements of Ayurveda podcast Facebook group. If you're not a member, come join us over there, and I'll put a link in the show notes. But please go out and purchase this book by Dr. Teitelbaum, Healing the Thyroid with Ayurveda. It's such an insightful book, great resources, lots of information, definitely groundbreaking book there. So highly, highly recommended. I also wanted to remind you of my upcoming Ayurveda and yoga retreat. It's a 3-day retreat right here in the French Riviera, October 11th to the 13th, here in Villefranche-sur-Mer, which is just nestled between Nice, which has an international airport, and Monaco. And it's going to be a weekend of connection and education and relaxation. We're going to have yoga classes, we're going to have Ayurvedic talks, and also workshops. Check out the link in the show notes, or you just visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com/retreat. And I have a discount going on until July 31st. There's some spots left. So go there for information and book soon before you miss out. And I would love to see you here on the French Riviera. I get to show you the special village I live in. And yeah, it would be great to have you here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Also, don't forget about that 15% discount I'm offering if you subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Take a screenshot or photo of the review and email it to me, and I'll send you the link for the 15% discount. That offer goes until May 24th, and the consultations need to be booked before July 31st. Take good care of yourself. Be well. Thanks again for connecting, and ciao for now.